What's happening, guys? Welcome back to the channel. My name is Adam, also known as the Plant Power Coach. Today, I have a lovely guest, Katie. Katie, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well. How are you, Adam?
I'm doing very well, thanks. And I know you said it's about 4:30 right now, PM. Where are you exactly in the world, just so we can kind of get a rough idea?
Yeah, awesome. I'm actually in Barrie, Ontario, Canada, which is 45 minutes north of Toronto.
Amazing, cool. And I know you've got a significant following, significant compared to my following as well. And for anyone who's kind of watching, a big fan of kind of seeing these sort of short clips either on Instagram or on long form on YouTube, could you give us a little bit of an intro about you and for anyone watching who may not know who you are?
Yeah, for sure. So I am the original raw vegan bikini model. There are no other raw vegan bikini models out there currently, and I've been raw vegan for 10 years since I read a few things from like Tonya Zavasta and some other insightful vegans that had a great deal of knowledge about like the anti-aging side of veganism and especially raw veganism. So I'm influential in the bodybuilding industry with the IFBB. I do the trophy presentations here in Ontario for the IFBB events, and I also do a lot of modeling gigs, and I'm sponsored by a lot of different top companies for bikinis, so such as Suits You Sexy, Vanity Couture, following Dory, a bunch of different bikini designers. So it's kind of my passion. A little bit about me too. July 5th is my birthday, which is actually National Bikini Day. So I feel like it was God ordained for me to be in this industry and also to shine a light in a different way as a bikini competitor, athlete, and model. To show a different side of veganism to show a different side of modeling for bikini and veganism. So showing a healthy way to do it.
I love that. And I'm not sure if you've had the chance to see any of sort of the other interviews that we've had, but if I could kind of summarize the long form videos that I do and the interviews that I do, we're kind of tied into three things. Number one being fitness, no particular order. Number two, veganism. And then number three, sort of plant-based nutrition. So tying in the sort of health aspects of that. You mentioned raw veganism, which I'm definitely going to touch in on that. And I consider that sort of the plant-based side of it. The fitness, you said, you do a lot of bikini modeling and then the vegan tie-in as well. So starting off with the sort of fitness side of things, I know bikinis, they have a sort of their own category within the sort of bodybuilding world. Could you tell us a little bit about your sort of approach to training in the gym and your sort of philosophy on fitness?
Yeah. So the bikini category with the IFBB, which I've actually steered away from as much as that's where I started. I'm now a part of the Swimsuit USA pageant. So that look is still having that bikini frame, so the hourglass frame, just not as focused on heavy musculature and that sort of look that is a bit bigger with the musculature. So my training is always geared towards the hourglass figure. So trying to have your like upper body and your hips in proportion to each other and the smallest waist possible. So a lot of my training is geared towards keeping a tiny waist and really growing the glutes. I've actually tried to lower my upper body musculature too, seeing as I'm going from IFBB to the Swimsuit USA pageant. So I've had to reduce my training in my upper body a little bit just so that it's not as pronounced as the other girls, because I already do carry a quite good amount of muscle mass for a vegan athlete. So just trying to streamline that down so that it's more of a marketable approach. So when I'm at the gym, like a typical week would be 3 days of glutes, 2 days of upper body. Right now, it's 2 days upper body Pilates based, and then 2 days of abs Pilates based. Cardio every day is usually like 60 minutes. Um, Previously, if I was competing with the IFBB ranks, it would be the cardio would fluctuate depending on if I was pre-competition or in my off season gaining muscle mass phase. But now, since I've transitioned, it's always trying to stay lean. So 60 minutes of cardio is just trying to keep everything tight and keeping body fat down, keeping metabolism regulated. Yeah, and even for glutes, I still lift as heavy as I can because believe it or not, for a female athlete or a female in general, if you're trying to build shape, you still have to push your body. And females don't have testosterone, and you can honestly lift as heavy as possible and you're still not going to gain too much muscle. Bearing in mind that you're using those muscle groups that you want to grow, right? So another part of my training, just to make sure that it's more glute focused, is that I'm not doing leg extensions. I'm not doing a lot of heavy squats. I'm not doing a lot of heavy deadlifts, because a lot of that activates the quadriceps and hamstrings. And yes, I want a little bit of hamstrings, but not over dominant to my glutes.
Mm.
And then also, the heavier you lift, the more core you activate, and to keep the tiny waist, you don't want to fire too much of your like obliques, serratus, any of that, to because it creates a bulk. I also am self-obsessed with my waist trainer and corsets. I believe that corsetting is like the way to go to make your waist smaller. I know that a lot of fitness influencers will say different, but it's not clinically, but like scientifically and bro scientifically proven, or sister scientifically proven, that it does work. And I mean, like when I wear corsets, it's not the ones that you get on Amazon. Not knocking Amazon here, and I'm not, and I am sponsored by corset company, so I'm not trying to sell anything. But when you wear a waist trainer that you're gonna pull and has like 26 steel bones, then you're gonna be able to make sure that everything just eventually gradually goes down, right? So even making sure that your rib cage, like there's the joints and all the fluids, eventually it does taper in. So I find it really interesting that we're able to change the body in that way, to fit the proportion and the aesthetics that we like, right? Which is cool. It's such a great sport. Yeah, and then I love doing hot yoga. Like I live 5-minute distance from my hot yoga studio, and I love doing the Bikram form of hot yoga, because that's been scientifically proven to be the best too. So the 90 minutes of the 26x2 postures, I love that, because I do feel like it lengthens the muscles and gets everything working according to the way we should be working. Yeah, and like even when it comes to training too, I feel like it's not so much even physical. I feel like it's mental and spiritual, because as much as you can say, okay, I'm going to do this cardio and I'm going to do 60 minutes on this piece of machine, in order for something to be effective, you really have to push yourself. And if you're not like in line spiritually and mentally, then you can't get to that next level. You can't turn your brain off to push yourself into that zone, right?
Mm.
Like I see so many people at the gym just on their phones, and literally I feel like they're playing Tetris, because they're not doing anything. They're not focusing in on the muscle. They're not where their head should be at, right? And biblically, there's a verse that says like you have to keep your foot. So whatever you're doing, keep your foot to where you are. Like if you're doing something, this is what you're doing. Give it your all where you are. So I feel like when you're in that training mode, it's like that self-discipline that you're still practicing over and over and over to get to the end goal, right?
Yep. Yeah, no,
So,
that actually there's a lot to unpack there, and I think one of the first things that you mentioned at the beginning was the category that you're in as bikini. You know, there's a certain shape to it. There's a sort of, I guess, training form to it as well.
mhm.
It reminds me a lot of, I started as a like in a fitness model category on stage, and these. Well, we were very kind of small guys compared to the bodybuilders. And one of the things that kind of in my mind was that, okay, if I can train a certain way, I can eventually, not necessarily in that same year, eventually get to a bodybuilding stage, and vice versa, perhaps men's physique along the way. Do you think the same thing applies for women on stage, or are there certain sort of body types where it's very difficult because, I guess, let's say some women have bigger legs or just kind of bigger shoulders? Do you think that everyone has the opportunity to place well in all categories, or is there a genetic tie to it?
100%. There is a genetic to everything, right?
Yep.
Like even to any, like even the careers that we're placed in.
Yep.
Yes, you can train yourself and get all the education, whatever it would be, but no matter what, God has placed us and created us in such a way to fit a certain thing that He wants us to do, right? So when it comes to say bikini, for me, that's like my category because that's the way more that I'm shaped. But then you can also steer back and think like, even for me for bikini, if I want to dissect myself even more, which is always great because it leads to self-improvement, I know that I'm short. And you can still be a great athlete and be a phenomenal bikini athlete short. But I know that if you get a little bit taller, it does look a little bit better sometimes too, right?
Mm.
There's been pros and cons to each side, right? So like I can put on muscle quicker because of my short stature. I have smaller muscle bellies, so it's easier to build muscle. But then also like for me to lean out, it takes a bit more too, right? And then when I look at some of my friends who have bigger muscle belt, like bigger structures, broad shoulders, just a bit bigger framed, it's harder for them to get to bikini because they do have to get tiny, right? So they might be more apt to be in like women's physique or something like
Yeah.
that. And then even the sports that you're engaged with when you're younger, like that still holds on your body as you go, right? When I was young, I was in cheer, dance, and track and field. So for me, it's just a natural flow into what I'm doing now,
Yeah.
right?
That makes complete sense. Tying in
Mm-hmm.
like the fitness side, I think we've definitely done quite a bit there with the training and the fitness side of it. And I really love the fitness topic. I could talk about it all day. The other
Mm-hmm.
sort of spectrum to this, which is not necessarily fitness related, like I know from a for me, veganism or on this channel, it's all about sort of the injustice or the moral and ethical side to things as well. So from a vegan standpoint, as far as I understand, you've been raw vegan 10 years. I'm not sure if it's the same time as went fully vegan. Could you tell us a little
Mm-hmm.
bit about your sort of, um, yeah, how you became vegan essentially?
Yeah. So pretty funny. I've been in the bodybuilding world since I was probably 15. My first relationship, I was dating a bodybuilder, and I've kind of always kept it on that trajectory. So, I mean, I standard used to eat 5 meals of meat or eggs or something a day, and I remember every single time I had to do meal prep, which was Sunday meal prep, it was you cook all your food, and if it's like you baggy it up in Ziploc like plastic bags, and then you put it in the freezer for like half a week, and then the rest you keep in the fridge. And I remember just like cooking the tilapia and the chicken and the eggs, and I was like, this stinks so bad. And I'm a smell person. That's like my strongest like sense, right? So I was like, I didn't like it. I was so frustrated. Sometimes I had to ask my mom to do it, and like it was gross, right? So I was like, there's got to be another way. Yet living in Canada and also being raised in an Aboriginal, French Aboriginal home, like meat and everything was kind of like a part of everything, right? So I was like, oh my gosh, you don't eat meat, you're gonna die. So um, I guess some life situations happened, and I was no longer dating the person I was with as a bodybuilder, and I was like, hey, there's got to be another way to do these things. And I looked up Tonya Zabasta's page. That was like, I will always remember this day all my life. I looked up her page, and it's beautiful on raw.com, not sponsored, but lovely lady, and she's 64, I believe now, and she's raw vegan and looks phenomenal. And I was like, it was one of those epiphany moments, and I was like, oh my gosh, there's a different way to do things. And all she talked about was fruits and vegetables and how you can um, reverse your age being and keep your beauty being a raw vegan. And as much as I appreciate the compassionate side of veganism too, which is amazing, and now I've kind of become more like open hearted to,
Hmm.
at the start it had nothing to do with that because that wasn't where my head was at, right? So at that moment I switched raw vegan, and I haven't looked back since, right? So there was never a time where I went vegan and cooked anything. It was I went raw vegan and that was it. Because to me, when I looked at the options of cooking lentils, cooking this, cooking that, like I had thought about it previously, but it didn't make sense to me. And also in the bodybuilding community, there's still a stigma that if you're eating lentils and beans and all those starchy things, that you're going to get fat as a bikini competitor, right? Like you're going to have fluff. So for me, like when I had the option of even going vegan, it wasn't an option because I didn't want to give up the leanness because I have always been relatively lean. So when I switched to raw vegan, it was like literally I didn't care about protein, I didn't care about anything. I just wanted to be raw because I seen what Tonya Zabasta was able to do. So I was like, I want to do that too. So I didn't really worry too much. I didn't worry about my muscle mass. I didn't worry
Mm,
about the protein. I didn't worry about any of that. And I'll be honest, when I went fully raw and not worry about my protein, I didn't get very much protein, even though I was still logging everything. I went super low weight, right? Super, super low weight. I didn't do very much weight training at that time either. So I went down to like maybe 95, 100 pounds. And it was by no means anorexia or anything like that. It was literally my body was like cleansing of things. So I probably went down from like 120 to like 95 in the course of like 6 months. Everybody thought I was sick and they didn't believe in raw veganism. So I maintained that weight for probably 5 years until I was like, okay, this is a little bit like tiny, right? Like all I was doing was like yoga, Pilates, and like walking cardio, no hard cardio, not training hard at all. So then I started incorporating more protein powder, raw protein powder, more nuts and seeds. And then my weight went back up, but the weight that I put back on was like a good shape, right? Because I started incorporating weight training too. So I felt like throughout that 10 years, my body has looked a little bit different, yet still being 100% raw vegan, still doing everything organic, still taking care of my mind, body, and soul. Um, my body's just, I feel like it's developed into like a beautiful feminine form compared to what it initially started as.
mhm,
So, what I would kind of project to those who are watching too is like, yes, sometimes things get worse before they get better. And sometimes you have to realize what you put your body through, right? Like we've all put ourselves, mind, body, and spirit through different things. And in order to get to that next level, sometimes you have to shed through layers that aren't the greatest, right?
mm.
So like the person I am today and like the health and vibrancy that I feel now is because I went through those challenging times through the transitions and found what was best for me, right? There's no cookie cutter approach. You have to find what's best for you. Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
No, that makes sense. Like you mentioned there, there was you said, for anyone watching, like this is the kind of method that you're using right now. Whenever I come up with these interviews, one of the things that I say is number one, I'm all about the sort of the vegan tie-in and the fitness side of things.
Mm-hmm.
But I also want to consider what the people watching would want to know as that person is going. And the sort of the first thing that kind of came to mind is this society we have right now where I feel like veganism is growing a lot. There happen to be a lot of ex-vegans that tie into that as well. And from the ex-vegan world, there happens to be a lot of, let's call them extreme dieters, where the sort of raw veganism come in. For me, raw vegan, junk food vegan, ethical vegan, like it doesn't really matter to me. It's like as long as it's kind of vegan. But for anyone who
Mm-hmm.
is watching, like what do you have to say to the people who say that raw vegan may not be optimal as someone who uses heating cooking methods, for example?
So funny because I'm so far removed from the process of cooking now. Like I don't even own cookware, right? Like if my friends come over, I'm like, I can't do that for you. I'm sorry. Right. So when it comes to cooking food, it's just like, why do humans complicate everything in life? Like, God gave us this thing. So why do we have to go and cook it? Like, He gave us a carrot. You don't need to cook it, just eat it like that. Right. Like, I had a conversation with one of my good friends, Tori Washington. He's also a vegan bodybuilder too. And I'm like, I just take it right back to the Garden of Eden, where like Adam and Eve were dropped into a garden and they had to survive, right? Like that's how, and they were with all the animals and they were naked. They didn't feel shame. And there was so much love. Took care of the land. Everything was so beautiful and like real, right? Like that's how, obviously we live in a different world now, but like I try to bring it back to that because that's what like grounds me and that's what roots me and like replenishes my soul, right? So those of you who are watching who feel like you have to cook all these things, like the food that God gave us on earth that comes straight from the earth just as is alive. It has full enzymes, has full minerals, has full everything, right? God would not give us these things like this if it wasn't meant to be eaten just like that, right? I know you have to cook soy, blah 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 blah. I personally don't do soy. I know that a lot of my friends do. I don't see anything wrong with it, but I just don't touch it because it's like there's other ways to get protein too. So I don't know. Just keep life simple, right?
Yeah, that kind of ties into my next question. By the way, Tory Washington, I hope he's watching. I have tried to arrange a meeting with him, so hopefully he'll see this, and that'll take us to the next stage as well. My next question is actually for the sort of people around you as well, from a raw vegan standpoint, and then from other people like let's say Tory or someone else who uses like heated cooking methods. Like how do you feel like raw veganism is something that sh everyone should be applying, or like each to their own kind of thing?
I think everybody should. Everybody should be at least 80% raw.
Mm.
80%. And then 20% if you want to cook, fine, that's cool, right? And like even Tori, he's my best friend pretty much. But so like even he's doing like probably 70, 80% cook
Yep.
raw. Do you know
Yep.
what I mean? Like it's not all cooked. So,
Mm.
but there is so some people will believe that if you want to get different amino acid sources from different foods, then you have to have that variety. And that's cool because to be honest, I only take in like two different forms of protein powders, two different brands, and it's always sprouted brown rice protein. So it's either Sun Warrior or North Coast Naturals. And I mean, that's just one protein source. So I get how people can be like, how are you getting all your aminos? But like my hair is long. My nails are fake because I like fake things sometimes too. Modeling world, balance it out. But I mean, like, there's no deficiencies in me, right? Like when people see me in person, when they see me and talk to me, they're like, there's no deficiencies in me, right?
Yep.
So yeah, I believe people should always do or aim for 80% raw. And once you
Mm.
keep going and keep going, you won't want to cook your food because raw tastes so good. It's so fresh. It's so full of life, right?
Mm.
Like a big salad, there's nothing better.
Yeah, I've eaten lots of raw food before. I've even been to raw
Mm,
restaurants, and I actually didn't know this for anyone who's watching. There's like a certain temperature you don't go over for it to be
yeah,
considered raw. I learned this at the restaurant that I went to, and
yeah,
I had some of the best desserts I've ever had in my life in this place, and it was just crazy
so
to
good.
me that these things weren't cooked. I think is it I don't know in Fahrenheit, but it was like 34 degrees
118.
Celsius. Okay, what
118.
it sounds potential. Yeah,
To me,
it could be
to me,
30.
it's just like just don't even cook, and then you
Yeah.
don't have to worry about all these rules,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And like if you, I also drink tea, right? So technically, tea is not raw because you're taking
Mm,
an herb and boiling it. But at the
mm,
same time, I know the medicinal qualities of a tea, so I'm gonna drink tea, right? So everybody will always get lost in all of these rules, right? And it's just
mm,
like even like with like I'm a Christian and like with Christianity, everybody gets lost in all these rules. It's like, no, it's just a guide, right? It's a guide. Like even the Bible, it's just a guide.
yeah.
Like and like the raw veganism, right? Like all these different things are guides. And
Mm,
then you apply it to your life right now, and then you go with it. And you keep going, you see how that guide works for you as you go.
mm,
So for me, it's like I'll even use like medicinal mushrooms, like reishi mushroom and stuff like that. And sometimes those are like heated before they go into like
yeah.
it's not an everyday thing, but it's trying to find what works best for you and like knowing that plant-based is the way to go 100%. We can look at the data on that. And B, trying to get at least 80% raw fruits and vegetables in your diet. And C, just like taking your time with it, experimenting and have fun. Like life is meant to be fun and like juicy and vibrant and awesome. Like we don't have to complicate things because the second, like if you are mindful with those choices on a daily basis, then you'll realize, oh my gosh, I'm overthinking this thing, or like this thing isn't working for me. And then you'll feel that like low vibration and then you won't want to move forward.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So
Yeah. The last question was revolving around sort of like, is do you feel like everyone would kind of benefit from going raw vegan as well? So the people like like I think it's fair to say you have a very unique method, just like many vegans. Vegans are a
Mhm.
minority. Being on stage as a bikini bodybuilder is a minority, a good minority to have as well. You know, even being raw vegan is a minority as well. How do the people in your life feel about your lifestyle?
Um, so a lot of the friends that I hang out with locally, they just like they almost feel inspired by it. No, it's not almost. They feel inspired by it. They're like, "Wow, I can't believe you can do that. Like you're so good. Like you're so champion, right?" So I love that. And like even in the bodybuilding world too. Like the funny thing is too is that everything that is said online against vegans or raw vegans, those people would never come and say it to your face because I've never ever had anybody say anything bad to me my face about being raw or vegan or anything like that. Right? They've always said noble, pure, trusting, loving things that were to me. My family, um, they just really accept it now. Do you know what I mean? And now, like even my dad will be like, "Oh yeah, I'm eating this, eating that," right? But he will. Some people will always have these fixed, closed mindsets. I'm not trying to offend my dad, but he will always love his meat, right? Like that's the way he was raised, and that's what he wants to do. So like, God love him for that. Like that's what he does. This is what I do. And it's more of like an acceptance now. And even some of my family members want to try more healthy things. I don't, they would never be raw and they would never be vegan, but as long as like
Yep.
I can be an inspiration in some sort of way, right?
You mentioned your dad in there as well, which is a great kind of thing because family and friends, you know,
Mhm.
they can be a big part of your life. And you know, you said he would always eat meat. Um, Besides your dad, do you have any non-vegan friends or family in your life? And if so, how do you feel about them?
Oh, I'm gonna say like everybody closest to me, other than like Tori and some other friends as well, are pretty much like not vegan. And it's just for me, like I would not want somebody eating meat in my home. Like I can't have that in my home. So if somebody's coming to visit, they know that they're not bringing meat, right? Like I've tried it before and like it totally disgusts me. And like even going to the grocery store, I can't walk past the meat aisles because it's just like it's like a horror show. Like I don't
Mm,
even understand, and it's disgusting. So for me, I don't see what they're eating, and I'm also a teacher as well. I'm a French teacher in the public Catholic school system. So I mean, when I go into the staff room, it's like it's ridiculous. Like I don't know how they're surviving on that because our job is so intense, so high pressure, right? And we have to be like the hands and feet of Jesus, loving and doing all these things, serving. So I don't know how they're able to fulfill that capacity eating that because even myself, like some days I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm struggling. I'm so tired, right? And just even having that like performance level that you have to hit every single day in the classroom. I don't know how they're doing it on sugary donuts and whatever else they're eating,
mm,
right? So I just kind of keep away from it. I don't go out for entertainment purposes. Like I haven't been to a bar ever really, not even in university. Like I haven't drank, like I tried alcohol when I was 15 and that was last time. So I mean, like
I
I
feel you.
don't, yeah, I don't
Yeah.
really associate with any of that, right? And I know
Yeah.
myself, I don't want to put myself in that position, not because I would be tempted, but more because I'd be disgusted and I don't want to be disgusted and I'd rather
Mm,
go do something that I enjoy.
yeah. That makes
Like
complete sense.
so far removed.
Absolutely. Um, not to change subjects because I could talk about this all day. I'm just wary of time as well. I've got one sort of final question before we do our sign off. It's a little bit of a long question, but it should make sense, and hopefully you can give us our sort of your sort of philosophical belief on everything we've
Mm.
discussed today. If you could go back and talk to your younger self, or potentially someone who just reminds you of you back when you were younger, what would you say to them based on everything we've discussed today, or from what you know now?
It doesn't have to be nutritionally or anything.
It's just everything we've discussed today, anything we've discussed today.
Mm, follow your heart and do what is right and have patience. And don't make hasty decisions. Base, don't do anything out of like, don't do anything in times of stress. Just like wait and pray about it and then make decisions. Because I find a lot of us nowadays are just very quick to go to instant gratification, where delayed gratification is always going to win. It's always going to be king. So just always just wait and work hard without burning yourself out, and just have hope, right? Like, and have a dream, right? Like, even you can't see it, but I used to swim. Well, I'm going to show it now. I used to
Amazing.
swim right there 10 years ago when I first moved to Barrie. And at that lifeguard station, I would go into the water and be like, and turn around and look right up here where I am right now. And I'd be like, I'm going to live one. I'm going to live in one of those condos and own one of them one day. And I would point up, and it's now actually the exact same place I'm at. Do you know what I mean? So
Mhm.
if you feel God is calling you to something, or God is saying that's yours, just believe, okay, that's yours, maybe just not right now. So you have to do the things that you need to do to get to where you need to be, right? So just have patience in that and know that there's steps that you have to take to get to that goal,
Amazing.
right?
I love
Like,
it. Yep.
yeah, like even like I want to win the swimsuit USA
Yep.
competition, right? And I know that it's going to take a lot of work, but it's like every single day you need to be reminding yourself of that goal, right? And not glorify it as the absolute pinnacle of everything, because things can change, but like know that, okay, this is what your goal is, so chase after it, right? It'll keep things positive and it'll keep you away from like the negative distractions that can pull you away.
I love that. Especially the part about, stop making rash, like impulsive decisions. Just take a breath and just, take your time with it.
Yeah.
That's amazing, Katie. Like I've for anyone watching as well, I've only spoken with you through Instagram. So for anyone who's watching, for anyone who loves your stuff, for anyone you would like to share your content or your affiliates with, where can people find you?
So I'm on Instagram at Katie Lesperance. No anything in between. So KATIE LESPERANCE. I know my last name is a little bit hard to pronounce. It's Lesperance. But yeah, Instagram is the best way to get me at. I don't have TikTok or Facebook really, because Instagram is enough to keep a hold of right now. That's like
Yeah,
a whole other world in itself to keep up with. So yeah, that's where you can find me. And I'm pretty good to answer DMs. I'm always pretty active on there too. So
amazing. So if anyone watching, I'm going to put the link down in the description below. So please go check her out. And that's it. I'm going to pause the recording, stop the recording there, and I'll see you on the other side.
awesome. Have a great day, guys.
Bye bye.
Bye.